90 Day Fiancé. Shocker. TLC fires Ball. After fraud allegations, fans accuse him of financial manipulation. Hello everyone. Welcome back to another exciting video. This is Jennifer from 90 Day Insider, here to bring you the latest updates, drama, and behind-the-scenes stories you don't want to miss. Let's dive right in. Fans were shocked when the news broke that TLC had fired Bilal from 90 Day Fiancé after serious fraud allegations surfaced. What started as whispers on social media, claims of financial manipulation, shady transactions, and controlling behavior quickly exploded into a full-blown scandal. Audiences were left questioning everything they thought they knew about him. Bilal, once portrayed as a charming and devoted husband, suddenly faced accusations that painted him as manipulative and controlling, a man who used charisma to exploit, deceive, and possibly defraud not just his partner, but even the network that made him famous. From his very first episodes, sharp-eyed viewers sensed something was off. Lavish gifts and romantic gestures were mixed with moments where he showed subtle but persistent control over finances, decisions, and even small household matters. At first, these moments were easy to dismiss. On the surface, he appeared attentive, protective, even loving. But insiders later revealed that behind the scenes, a troubling pattern was forming. Friends and production staff reportedly saw him questioning every small purchase, insisting on handling all transactions, and framing his financial control as if it were an act of care. What looked like devotion on camera began to appear more deliberate and controlling once examined closely. As the couple navigated the pressures of marriage and reality TV fame, Bilal's tactics reportedly became more sophisticated. He shaped the narrative, coached responses for producers, and found ways to keep his spouse isolated from outside input. This ensured he remained the dominant voice in both private and public settings. Crew members later admitted they noticed inconsistencies in his stories, unexplained financial discrepancies, and a steady influence over his partner's decisions. The charm that captivated millions of viewers had a darker side, an ability to control and manipulate while maintaining a facade of love and devotion. It didn't take long for fans to begin noticing the red flags. Online forums, discussion groups, and social media threads filled with speculation. People asked if Bilal was a gold digger exploiting his partner for money, or if he was a narcissist who used selective truths and charisma to manipulate. Viewers picked apart every detail, noticing how lavish spending often clashed with vague explanations about assets. His financial statements were partial, carefully worded, and designed to avoid scrutiny. Every generous act and romantic gesture appeared less like love and more like strategy. Behind the cameras, the reality was even darker. According to insiders, TLC executives launched an internal investigation after receiving reports about suspicious financial behavior and manipulation. They reviewed documents, collected testimonies, and began piecing together patterns that pointed to something deliberate. Bilal's control over money wasn't incidental, it was systematic. The evidence suggested he used trust, charm, and authority as tools to gain leverage while concealing the truth. Fans reacted with outrage. Social media lit up with speculation and anger. Old episodes were revisited and scrutinized for signs that something had been wrong all along. Viewers debated whether Bilal's actions were selfish, opportunistic, or outright criminal. Comment sections filled with lines like it was all an act and he was manipulating her the whole time. For many, the betrayal felt personal, as though the carefully crafted love story had tricked them too. The allegations soon became too serious to ignore. TLC acted decisively, firing Bilal and citing concerns about trust, safety, and the integrity of the show. The man once celebrated as a charming husband was suddenly unmasked as someone whose manipulative tactics carried serious consequences, both on and off screen. The scandal sparked bigger conversations about the ethics of reality television, the vulnerability of its participants, and how easily charm can hide dangerous behavior until it is finally revealed. The fallout from Bilal's firing sent shockwaves through the 90 Day Fiancé community. Fans, crew, and insiders tried to piece together the truth behind the persona they had once admired. What started as whispers about subtle financial control escalated into a storm of allegations suggesting fraud, manipulation, and exploitation. The scandal dominated online conversations for months. While the early signs had been small, a questionable purchase here, a vague financial statement there, Part 2 of the story revealed the full extent of the deception. Insider accounts, social media investigations, and TLC's own review painted a clear picture. Behind the cameras, the tension had been growing steadily. Crew members who once admired Bilal's charisma started noticing patterns they could no longer ignore. During filming, he insisted on controlling every financial decision in the household, presenting himself as the one who knew best what was necessary or responsible. At first, production staff explained away these behaviors as quirks, cultural differences, or personal habits. But as the weeks went by, the omissions and inconsistencies became impossible to overlook. Every document he handled, every financial explanation he offered was partial and selective. Transparency was always promised, but rarely delivered. By the time TLC executives were formally alerted, the evidence was already piling up. Reports from staff described repeated incidents where Bilal appeared to manipulate finances for his own benefit. Often, these actions were disguised as household necessities or framed as marital decisions. Crew members observed how he redirected questions, charmed his way out of scrutiny, and used subtle guilt to stop his spouse from challenging him. Looked at separately, these moments could seem small, but when seen together, they formed a troubling pattern of calculated control. When news of the internal investigation leaked, social media exploded again. Fans took to Twitter, Instagram, and Reddit with the hashtag Bilal fraud, dissecting past episodes in search of overlooked clues. Clips were slowed down, analyzed frame by frame, with fans pointing out details that now seemed obvious in hindsight. Many viewers felt deceived, not only by Bilal, but by the show itself for allowing the behavior to go unchecked for so long. The scandal was more than just a personal downfall. It became a cautionary tale about how charm and influence can disguise manipulation, and how reality TV can blur the line between entertainment and exploitation. For Bilal, the result was devastating. The image he had built crumbled under the weight of fraud allegations, and his time on 90 Day Fiancé came to an abrupt and controversial end. Highlighting moments where Bilal's charm seemed to override transparency, viewers began to notice red flags. Questions about spending were often deflected, and his spouse appeared hesitant to assert independence. Online debates grew louder. Some theorists argued that his actions showed signs of gold digging. Others said it was narcissistic manipulation, and still others believed it was outright fraud. Each argument was dissected, every claim was analyzed, and every inconsistency was amplified in the court of public opinion. Fans weren't the only ones shocked. Former crew members, speaking anonymously, confirmed that they had observed Bilal's behaviors firsthand and found them troubling. One insider revealed that he often coached his spouse on how to answer financial questions during filming. This meant he was controlling not just what viewers saw, but also limiting access to important information in real life. The insider explained it wasn't loud or aggressive. It was subtle, methodical, and manipulative. It was the classic pattern of narcissistic control. People on set began to realize it wasn't just about money. It was about power and influence. The drama escalated further when evidence of selective financial disclosure and possibly fraudulent transactions surfaced. Bilal allegedly orchestrated situations where he had total control over bank statements, credit cards, and household expenses. To outsiders, it looked like responsibility and order, but in reality, he was concealing choices that primarily benefited him. Friends and family confirmed this pattern, describing secrecy, control, and coercion that went far beyond what most couples experience, especially under the pressures of reality TV filming. At the same time, TLC launched its own investigation. Executives ordered staff interviews, reviewed financial documents, and even examined episodes for signs of manipulation. They were reportedly shocked at how consistent the patterns were. Sources confirmed that Bilal's behavior violated not only trust within his marriage, but also the ethical standards expected from cast members. In the end, the decision to terminate his contract was unanimous. It was a rare move in the reality TV industry, But TLC felt it was necessary to protect the show's integrity and avoid further liability. When the news of his termination became public, fans reacted instantly. Social media flooded with posts questioning his prenup negotiations, his stance on children, and even his claims about starting a business. Many who had rooted for him now expressed betrayal, saying things like, "It was all a scam," or "Every gesture was calculated." Comment sections filled with shock and anger, and forums buzzed with endless debates. The scandal quickly became one of the most talked about controversies in 90-Day Fiancé history. Experts on relationship dynamics began weighing in as well. They described Bilal's actions as textbook examples of financial control and narcissistic manipulation. They explained how subtle coercion, charm, and selective disclosure can be used to gain influence over a partner, creating dependency while hiding ulterior motives. One expert described the case as a cautionary tale, saying the way he used charm to build trust, control money, and isolate his spouse is classic behavior seen in abusive financial dynamics. The fact that it was amplified by reality TV only made it more dangerous. The combination of insider testimony, expert analysis, and fan investigations painted a disturbing picture of a carefully orchestrated scheme. What once looked like devotion now seemed calculated. Every romantic gesture, every persuasive conversation, and every moment of apparent affection was reinterpreted through a darker lens. Fans felt a sense of shock and betrayal as they realized the charming husband they thought they knew might have been manipulating everyone all along. The scandal also raised broader questions about the ethical responsibilities of reality TV networks. How much oversight should producers exercise? At what point do on-screen performances spill into real-world harm? Bilal's case highlighted the delicate balance networks must maintain between creating drama for entertainment and protecting the people involved from abuse. TLC's decision to cut him reflected a growing recognition that unchecked manipulation, particularly financial, cannot be tolerated, even if it disrupts storylines or affects ratings. By the time this chapter closed, the full scope of Bilal's alleged manipulations had come into focus. They included financial control, psychological influence, charm masking deceit, and systematic behaviors that deceived not only his spouse, but also millions of viewers. The scandal left fans questioning how well they ever really know reality TV stars, how easily charm can disguise malice, and how much responsibility networks have in preventing harm. When TLC officially terminated Bilal, the floodgates opened. Social media erupted with outrage, disbelief, and heartbreak as fans tried to process the news. The husband they had rooted for, cheered for, and emotionally invested in was accused of fraud and manipulation. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Reddit became battlegrounds of speculation and judgment. Thousands of fans dissected past episodes frame by frame, looking for subtle signs they had missed. Every romantic word, every display of generosity, every calm argument was reinterpreted as a possible act of deception rather than love. The hashtag Bilal fraud trended globally. Fan communities became consumed with debates. Reaction videos flooded YouTube and TikTok, with creators breaking down his behavior in painful detail. People didn't just express anger, they expressed devastation. Many had invested emotionally in the couple, celebrating their milestones and rooting for their story. Now they felt tricked. One fan tweeted, "It's heartbreaking to realize it was all a performance." He wasn't just hiding things from his spouse. He was hiding them from all of us. Others warned about the dangers of being charmed too easily, describing the scandal as a modern cautionary tale about manipulation in relationships. Major media outlets quickly picked up the story. Entertainment news platforms ran deep dives, interviews with insiders, and commentary from psychologists. The message was clear. This was not just another reality TV scandal. It was also a lesson in manipulation and control. Analysts explained how selective disclosure and charm are often used to maintain power in relationships, and how these tactics can become amplified under the pressures of fame and public attention. The story dominated headlines for weeks. Every new post, every insider leak, and every expert opinion reignited debates. Meanwhile, TLC scrambled to contain the fallout. The network released public statements stressing their commitment to integrity, transparency, and participant safety. They emphasized that Bilal's termination had been the result of a careful review and evidence of behavior inconsistent with the network's values. The scandal showed just how fragile trust can be between networks, cast members, and audiences. It revealed how charm and charisma, when unchecked, can mask manipulation for far too long. And it forced fans to reckon with the reality that sometimes what seems like love on screen can hide much darker truths off camera. Behind closed doors, sources revealed that producers carried out extensive internal reviews to make sure all risks were addressed and that situations like this could be prevented in the future. The decision to remove Bilal, though difficult, was described as necessary to protect both the participants and the integrity of the show. Legal experts also gave their opinions, pointing out that the fallout for Bilal could go beyond being removed from the network. Allegations of financial manipulation, misrepresentation, and fraud could open the door to investigations, civil lawsuits, or other legal action depending on what evidence was confirmed. Lawyers analyzing the case explained that combining reality TV exposure with allegations of deceit created a complicated legal landscape, one that could bring consequences for Bilal and anyone else who may have been unknowingly affected by his actions. At the time, no formal charges had been filed, but the possibility of accountability hung over the story, adding more tension to an already explosive scandal. Fans and critics began speculating about Bilal's future. Could he ever return to reality TV? Would another network be willing to take a chance on him? Or had the scandal permanently destroyed his credibility? Many argued that once public trust is broken, it is almost impossible to win back, especially in the unforgiving world of reality television. From that point on, every appearance, every interview, and every social media post would be judged through the lens of the scandal. Redemption would be a long, uphill battle. The narrative of charm hiding deceit was now firmly cemented in the public's mind. It stood as a warning to viewers and to future reality TV participants about the dangers of putting personal relationships under such intense public scrutiny. The scandal also created broader conversations about the ethical responsibilities of networks. How much should producers do to ensure participants are safe, informed, and protected from manipulation? At what point does the pursuit of drama cross into the exploitation of trust, emotion, and finances? Bilal's case became a turning point for many industry insiders and media analysts, who used it to highlight the fine line between creating compelling television and protecting the lives of the people on screen. Experts suggested that networks should increase oversight, offer financial counseling to cast members, and keep open communication to prevent similar situations in the future. Meanwhile, social media continued buzzing long after his termination was announced. Fans shared theories, rewatched episodes, and debated whether TLC's editing might have unintentionally allowed Bilal's behavior to slip by unnoticed. Many argued that reality TV itself is designed to amplify control, isolation, and influence, making it easier for participants with deceptive motives to hide them and exploit trust. Commentators warned that audiences should always remain cautious, remembering that on-screen personas are often carefully shaped and that charm should not automatically be mistaken for integrity. Bilal, for his part, stayed mostly silent as the scandal unfolded. Any statements he released were short, carefully written, and gave away little. Experts noted that this is a common strategy for individuals facing exposure. Stay calm, try to control the narrative, and avoid admitting anything until it becomes absolutely necessary. But fans saw it differently. To many, his silence felt like confirmation of guilt, which only fueled more outrage and speculation. The impact on his spouse was especially difficult. Insider accounts described the emotional strain and feelings of betrayal that came with being in the middle of such public scrutiny. What had once been private struggles now became subjects of debate for audiences around the world. People weighed in on loyalty, deception, and responsibility as though they were part of the relationship. The human cost of the scandal was undeniable. It served as a painful reminder that reality television, while entertaining, is not just a show. It involves real lives, real emotions, and real consequences. The aftermath of the scandal also led to reflection within the wider reality TV community. Former participants, producers, and media commentators all spoke about the lessons that needed to be learned. Transparency and honesty were seen as essential. protecting participants from manipulation was emphasized as a priority. Many discussed the risks of putting deeply personal relationships under public scrutiny for the sake of entertainment. There were calls for stronger psychological support, financial oversight, and more ethical production practices. The conversation grew into a larger acknowledgement that networks bear responsibility for the people they cast, not just for the stories they create. In the end, Bilal's scandal became more than a headline. It turned into a cautionary tale for fans, participants, and producers alike. It showed how charm and charisma can mask manipulation, how public exposure can make private control even more damaging, and how reality TV, while designed to entertain, can leave its stars vulnerable to risks that go far beyond what audiences see. TLC's decision to fire Bilal sent a clear message. Manipulation, deceit, and financial exploitation would not be tolerated. The safety and integrity of participants had to come before drama or ratings. As the dust began to settle, fans continued to revisit old episodes, watching his behavior more closely and rethinking how they had interpreted it at the time. Many debated what the broader implications were for reality TV. Some argued the scandal revealed how fragile trust is between cast members, networks, and viewers. Others pointed out that it highlighted the dangers of deception and the consequences of exploiting charm for personal gain. For fans, Bilal's story became a lesson in skepticism, proof that not everything shown on television can be taken at face value. For networks, it became a reminder of their responsibility to protect cast members while still producing entertainment. And for Bilal himself, it left a legacy that would always be overshadowed by scandal and mistrust. For TLC, the damage control was ongoing. The network issued statements emphasizing their commitment to safety, transparency, and ethics. They assured audiences that lessons had been learned and steps were being taken to prevent similar situations. At the same time, they worked to redirect attention to other storylines and participants, ensuring that the scandal did not overshadow the entire franchise. But the shadow of Bilal's downfall lingered, and questions about how much the network knew and when they knew it continued to surface in fan discussions. Bilal himself remained a mystery. His few public appearances were carefully managed, with little more than vague reassurances and polite deflections. He avoided addressing the allegations directly, a strategy that left many unsatisfied, but also kept him from making mistakes that could deepen the damage. Silence can be powerful, but in his case it often worked against him, reinforcing the belief that he had something to hide. His attempts to maintain a calm and collected image only made fans more certain that his charm was a mask, a tactic he had perfected over time. Meanwhile, the impact on his spouse became increasingly clear. Public sympathy leaned heavily toward her, with fans offering support and expressing outrage on her behalf. Being placed in the center of a scandal of this magnitude meant that her personal struggles became public debates. Every decision she made was questioned, every statement analyzed, every appearance judged. Insiders spoke of her emotional exhaustion, describing the strain of not only dealing with betrayal, but also enduring the relentless attention from viewers and media. It was a reminder that the fallout of reality TV drama doesn't just affect reputations, it affects lives in deeply personal ways. The scandal also changed the way viewers engaged with the show. Many admitted they now watched with more skepticism, aware of how easily storylines could hide manipulation. Discussions about authenticity and editing grew louder. Was what they were seeing truly real? Or was it a version of reality shaped for entertainment? Bilal's case made fans more critical, more cautious, and less willing to take things at face value. The trust between audience and show had been damaged, and rebuilding it would take time. Industry insiders pointed out that Bilal's story could influence how reality TV is produced moving forward. Stricter background checks, more psychological support, financial counseling, and clearer rules around transparency were all suggested as potential reforms. Producers were reminded that while drama fuels ratings, the people at the center of that drama are real and vulnerable. Networks could no longer ignore the potential for harm, and Bilal's scandal stood as proof of what happens when charm and control go unchecked. For Bilal, the future remained uncertain. Opportunities in television or public appearances seemed slim. Any attempt at a comeback would be shadowed by scandal. Fans debated whether redemption was possible, but most agreed that public trust, once broken, is almost impossible to regain. Every move he made from now on would be judged against the past, and the narrative of manipulation would follow him wherever he went. His legacy was no longer that of a charismatic husband, but of a cautionary tale about how charm can be used to exploit.